Hey everyone. First time recording one of these, but I need to get this off my chest before I lose my mind completely. My name's David, I'm 38, and I've been a GPS monitoring systems developer for the last decade. Yeah, I know ironic as hell given what I'm about to tell you. I've been married to my wife Lauren for 12 years. High school sweethearts, the whole damn fairy tale. She's 36, works as a freelance consultant, which basically means she helps small businesses with their marketing strategies from home. We've got a nice house in the suburbs. No kids yet, but we've been talking about it. Everything seemed perfect. About 2 months ago, Lauren's car got broken into while she was at the grocery store. They didn't take much, just some loose change and her gym bag, but it freaked her out. She came home shaking, talking about how unsafe she felt. So naturally, being the loving husband and tech guy that I am, I offered to install one of our company's new security systems in her car. Top of the line stuff. GPS tracking, remote lock/unlock, real-time monitoring, the works. I told her it would give me peace of mind knowing I could check on her if something went wrong. She was hesitant at first, said it felt like overkill, that she didn't want me babysitting her. But I convinced her it was just for safety, just in case something happened again. She eventually agreed, and I installed the whole system one Saturday afternoon. Took me maybe 3 hours. The interface connects to an app on my phone where I can see her location, battery status, everything. For the first few weeks, I didn't really look at it much. I mean, why would I? I trusted my wife completely. We'd been together for almost 2 decades. She was my best friend, my partner, the person I told everything to. But then I started noticing something weird. Every Thursday, Lauren would tell me she was going to her evening yoga class. She'd started going about 4 months ago, said it helped with her stress and back pain. She'd leave the house around 6:30 p.m., come back around 9 p.m., always in her yoga clothes, hair up in a ponytail, carrying her yoga mat. I never questioned it. Why would I? But one Thursday about 3 weeks ago, I was working late on a system update and happened to glance at the tracking app. Just idle curiosity, really. And that's when I saw it Lauren's car wasn't at the yoga studio on Maple Street where she said she went. Instead, the GPS showed her in the industrial warehouse district on the east side of town. You know, that area where all the old factories and storage facilities are. The place that's basically abandoned except for a few logistics companies? My first thought was that maybe the GPS was glitching. New system, could have calibration issues. So I watched it. For the next 2 hours, her car didn't move. Just sat there in that warehouse district. Then at 8:47 p.m., it started moving again, took the route back home, and she walked in the door at 9:03 p.m. in her yoga clothes, mat under her arm, talking about how intense the class was tonight. I didn't say anything. I convinced myself it was a GPS error. But the next Thursday, I checked again. Same thing. Car goes to the warehouse district at 6:35 p.m., stays there until about 8:45 p.m., then comes home. And the Thursday after that. And the one after that. For weeks in a row, every single Thursday, my wife was lying to me about where she was going. I started losing sleep. My mind went to the obvious place first: affair. She was meeting someone at that warehouse. Some guy, probably. The pattern was too consistent to be anything else. Every Thursday, like clockwork. I felt sick. We'd been together since we were kids. How could she do this to me? But something didn't add up. Why a warehouse district? If you're having an affair, you go to a hotel, or their place, or somewhere comfortable. Not some sketchy industrial area. And why the same location every single time? Cheaters usually try to vary their patterns to avoid detection. I needed more information before I confronted her. I'm a developer, I solve problems with data. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots of her location every Thursday, timestamps, routes she took. I even drove out to that warehouse district one Saturday to scope it out. The place was exactly as depressing as it sounds. Old brick buildings, most of them with broken windows and faded for lease signs. There were maybe 3 or 4 businesses still operating out there: a plumbing supply company, a furniture warehouse, and what looked like some kind of import-export operation. The building where Lauren's car kept parking was one of the abandoned ones. No signage, no visible activity, just a big empty structure with a loading dock in the back. I sat in my car across the street for about an hour, trying to figure out what the hell my wife could possibly be doing there. The area was dead. I saw maybe 2 other cars the whole time I was there. This wasn't a place you went for yoga, and it wasn't a place you went for romance either. It was a place you went when you didn't want to be found. That's when the real fear set in. What if this wasn't an affair? What if Lauren was in some kind of trouble? What if she was being blackmailed or involved in something dangerous? My mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. Last Thursday, I decided I needed to know for sure. I told Lauren I had to work late, big client presentation the next day. She kissed me goodbye and left for her yoga class at 6:28 p.m. The moment her car left our driveway, I pulled up the tracking app and watched her route in real time. She drove straight to the warehouse district, parked in the same spot she always did behind the abandoned building, not visible from the street. And then her car just sat there for 2 hours and 17 minutes, the GPS that didn't move. I was sitting at my desk, hands shaking, staring at my phone. My wife, the woman I'd loved for half my life, was lying to me every single week, and I had no idea why. The betrayal burned in my chest. Not knowing was eating me alive. But here's where it gets complicated. Because just as I was about to close the app and try to calm down, another GPS dot appeared on my screen. See, my company gives all employees tracking devices for our work vehicles. And one of those dots, my brother Kevin's company truck, just pulled into the same warehouse parking lot where my wife was sitting. My brother Kevin, my only sibling, the guy who'd been my best man at my wedding. What the fuck was he doing there? I need to stop recording for now. My hands are shaking too much to keep going. But I promise you this story gets so much worse than I ever could have imagined. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about cutting off so abruptly last time, but I needed to process some shit before I could keep talking about this. Let me catch you up on my brother Kevin before I get into what happened next. Kevin is 35, 3 years younger than me. Growing up, we were close, not best friends close, but we had each other's backs. He got into some trouble as a teenager, nothing major, just the usual stupid shit like underage drinking and getting into fights. Our parents were hard on him, always comparing him to me because I was the good kid who got scholarships and went to college. Kevin didn't go to college. Instead, he bounced around different jobs for years: construction, delivery driver, warehouse work. About 5 years ago, he started his own logistics consulting business. I never really understood what that meant, and honestly, I didn't ask too many questions. He had a nice truck, seemed to be making decent money, and he'd settled down. That was enough for me. Kevin and Lauren always got along well. Maybe too well, now that I think about it. At family gatherings, they'd joke around, talk about business stuff since they both worked in consulting. Kevin would sometimes ask Lauren for marketing advice for his company. It all seemed normal, friendly, nothing that ever made me suspicious. But seeing his truck pull into that warehouse parking lot, right where my wife had been sitting for the past 2 hours, my brain couldn't process it. The worst thoughts flooded in immediately. Were they having an affair? Had my own brother been sleeping with my wife? I sat there at my desk, watching both GPS dots on my screen. Kevin's truck parked right next to Lauren's car. They were both there, together, in an abandoned warehouse district, while I sat at home like an idiot thinking my wife was at yoga and my brother was doing whatever the hell logistics consultants do. For about 20 minutes, neither vehicle moved. Then both dots started moving at the same time. They left the warehouse district together, took different routes, and headed in opposite directions. Lauren came home at 9:01 p.m. Kevin's truck headed toward his apartment across town. When Lauren walked in the door, I was sitting on the couch pretending to watch TV. She had her yoga mat, her water bottle, her whole routine down perfectly. "Hey babe," she said, kissing my forehead. "Good class tonight. My instructor really kicked our asses with these new poses." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd known since I was 17 years old. And I realized I had no idea who she actually was anymore. "That's great, hon," I managed to say. "I'm glad you're getting so much out of it." She smiled and headed upstairs to shower. I sat there in the dark, my mind racing. I needed to confront her. I needed to confront Kevin. But some instinct told me to wait, to gather more information. Because this wasn't just about catching my wife in a lie anymore. This involved my brother, and that made everything exponentially more fucked up. The next morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I accessed the historical GPS data for Kevin's work truck through our company system. Technically, I wasn't supposed to do this without authorization, but fuck it, my marriage and my family were falling apart. I needed answers. The pattern that emerged made my blood run cold. Every Thursday for the past 6 months, Kevin's truck had been going to that same warehouse at the same time as Lauren's car. Not once or twice. Every single Thursday for 6 months. But it got worse. Kevin's truck was also making trips to that warehouse on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Sometimes early morning, sometimes late night. And when I cross-referenced those times with Lauren's GPS data, her car was there too. Not every Tuesday and Saturday, but enough times to establish a clear pattern. Whatever was happening at that warehouse, my wife and my brother had been doing it together for at least half a year. Long before Lauren's car got broken into. Long before I installed the GPS system. I felt like I was going insane. The two people I trusted most in the world were conspiring behind my back, and I had no idea why. The affair theory started seeming less likely. Why would they need to meet so frequently? Why always the same location? Why the rigid schedule? I needed to know what was inside that warehouse. That Saturday, I told Lauren I was going fishing with some buddies from work. She barely looked up from her laptop, told me to have fun. I drove straight to the warehouse district and parked about a block away from the building where they always met. It was 10:47 a.m. According to the GPS data, neither Lauren nor Kevin were scheduled to be there until that evening. I walked around the building carefully, trying not to look suspicious. The place looked abandoned. Graffiti on the walls, weeds growing through cracks in the pavement, broken windows on the upper floors. But the loading dock in the back looked different. Newer. The door was industrial-grade steel, and there was a security camera pointed at the entrance. Someone was definitely using this building for something, and they'd invested in keeping people out. I was about to leave when a car pulled into the lot. Not Lauren's car or Kevin's truck, a black Mercedes sedan with tinted windows. A man in an expensive suit got out, looked around carefully, then used a key card to open the loading dock door. He disappeared inside. 5 minutes later, he came out carrying a large black duffel bag, loaded it into his trunk, and drove away. I sat in my car, heart pounding. Whatever was going on in that warehouse, it wasn't yoga. It wasn't an affair. It was something else entirely. Something that involved expensive cars, security cameras, and duffel bags being moved in and out. That evening, I checked the GPS. Kevin's truck arrived at 7:14 p.m. Lauren's car arrived at 7:22 p.m. They stayed for about 90 minutes, then left separately. On Monday morning, I did something that crossed every line of privacy and trust in a marriage. I installed spyware on Lauren's phone. I know it's a massive violation, and I'm not proud of it. But I was desperate, and I needed to know what the hell my wife was involved in. The spyware gave me access to her texts, emails, and calls. For 2 days, I saw nothing suspicious. Just normal stuff: texts to friends, work emails to clients, a shopping list she'd shared with me. Then on Wednesday night, I hit the jackpot. A text conversation between Lauren and Kevin. Kevin, Thursday, 7 p.m. Bringing the new shipment. Lauren, copy that. I'll have the documentation ready. Kevin, make sure the counts match this time. Had issues last week. Lauren, it wasn't my fault. The supplier shorted us. Kevin, just double-check everything. Can't afford mistakes. Shipment. Documentation. Supplier. This wasn't a fair language. This was business language. Criminal business language. My wife wasn't cheating on me. She was running some kind of operation with my brother. And based on the secrecy, the cash, the sketchy warehouse location, it had to be illegal. I spent Wednesday night lying awake next to Lauren, watching her sleep peacefully while my world crumbled around me. The woman I'd married wasn't who I thought she was. My brother wasn't who I thought he was. And I had absolutely no idea what to do about it. Thursday morning, I made a decision. I was going to follow them to the warehouse and see exactly what they were doing. No more GPS dots on a screen. No more speculation. I needed to see it with my own eyes. That night changed everything. And I mean everything. Thursday, November 16th. The day my entire life exploded. I'm recording this a week later, and I still can't quite believe what happened. But I need to tell someone, even if it's just strangers on the internet listening to this podcast. I called in sick to work that Thursday. Told my boss I had food poisoning. Lauren barely noticed. She was busy on her laptop all morning, typing away at something she quickly minimized whenever I walked past. Around 5 p.m., she went upstairs to get ready for yoga. I heard the shower running, heard her moving around in our bedroom, and felt this crushing weight in my chest knowing she was preparing to lie to me again. She left at 6:24 p.m. I waited exactly 3 minutes, then grabbed my keys and followed her. I kept my distance, staying several cars back. Not that I needed to follow her visually. I had her GPS dot on my phone, but some part of me needed to physically tail her, to be present for this moment. She took the same route she always did, straight to the warehouse district. I parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot. It was already dark, and the industrial area was lit only by a few scattered streetlights. I could see Lauren's car in the back lot. Kevin's truck was already there too. I stayed in the shadows, moving along the side of the building. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The loading dock door was closed, but there was a small window about 8 feet up. I found an old crate, stacked it against the wall, and carefully climbed up to look inside. What I saw made my stomach drop. The warehouse interior had been converted into some kind of processing center. There were tables set up with counting machines, the kind banks use for cash. Stacks and stacks of bills organized in neat piles. At least 6 people were in there, including Lauren and Kevin. They were all wearing gloves, methodically counting money and organizing it into different bags. But that wasn't the worst part. In the corner of the warehouse, I could see pallets loaded with boxes. One of the boxes was open, and I could clearly see bundles of cash inside. We're not talking about thousands of dollars. This looked like hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. Lauren was sitting at one of the counting tables, running bills through a machine and recording numbers in a ledger. She looked comfortable, confident, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Kevin was talking to another guy, gesturing at a clipboard, completely at ease. My wife was laundering money. My brother was laundering money. And they'd been doing it together for months, maybe years, right under my fucking nose. I almost fell off the crate. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to grab the wall to steady myself. Every Thursday, Lauren told me she was at yoga. She was actually here, processing what had to be dirty money with my own brother. Every casual conversation at family dinners where they talked about business was probably code for this criminal enterprise. I climbed down from the crate and stumbled back to my car, my mind reeling. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, trying to figure out what the hell to do. Call the police? Confront them? Pretend I never saw anything? Then another car pulled into the lot. The same black Mercedes I'd seen on Saturday. The suited man got out, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 other men exited the car with him, both carrying large duffel bags. They disappeared into the warehouse through a side entrance. I made a decision right then. I was going to the police. Not because I wanted to destroy my wife and brother, but because whatever they were involved in was clearly dangerous. These weren't small-time operators. The amount of money I'd seen, the security measures, the multiple people involved, this was organized crime. I drove straight to the police station and asked to speak to someone about financial crimes. They put me in a room with a detective named Sarah Morrison. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. I told her everything: the GPS tracking, the warehouse, what I'd seen through the window. I showed her the location, the screenshots of the GPS patterns, the text messages between Lauren and Kevin. Detective Morrison listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "what you're describing sounds like a money laundering operation, possibly connected to organized crime. If we investigate this and your wife and brother are involved, they're going to face serious federal charges. Are you prepared for that?" The weight of her question hit me. I was about to send my wife to prison, my own brother to prison. Everything I said in this room could destroy 2 people I'd loved my entire life. But then I thought about the lies, the deception, the fact that Lauren had looked me in the eye every single Thursday for months and lied without hesitation. The fact that Kevin had come to family dinners, had asked me for tech advice for his business, had been my best man at my wedding, all while running a criminal operation with my wife. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." Detective Morrison nodded. "Okay, we're going to need your full cooperation. We'll need access to the GPS data, the text messages, everything you have. And we're going to need you to not let on that you know anything. Can you do that?" I nodded. For the next 4 hours, I sat in that police station and gave them everything. Every screenshot, every pattern, every detail I could remember. They were particularly interested in The Mercedes and the suited man. Apparently, the car matched the description of a vehicle connected to a money laundering investigation they'd been working for the past year. "Your wife and brother might be small players in a much bigger operation," Detective Morrison explained. "We've been trying to track the flow of money from several criminal enterprises: drugs, illegal gambling, human trafficking. If this warehouse is a processing center, there are people above your wife and brother calling the shots." The thought made me sick. Lauren wasn't just lying to me about yoga. She was part of something that funded human trafficking. Kevin wasn't just a screw-up little brother who'd finally made something of himself. He was a criminal. Detective Morrison told me they'd start surveillance immediately. They'd watch the warehouse, track who came and went, build a case. It would take time, maybe weeks or months, but eventually, they'd raid the operation and arrest everyone involved. In the meantime, she said, you need to go home and act normal. Don't confront your wife. Don't change your behavior. They can't know we're onto them. So that's what I did. I went home at 11 p.m. and found Lauren asleep in our bed, still in her yoga clothes. I stood in the doorway and looked at her, this stranger who wore my wife's face. She looked peaceful, innocent, like she hadn't just spent 3 hours laundering blood money. I slept on the couch that night. Told her the next morning that I'd fallen asleep watching TV and didn't want to wake her. She kissed me goodbye and left for work like nothing had happened. For the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I went to work, came home, had dinner with my wife, pretended everything was fine. At night, I met with Detective Morrison and her team, providing updates on GPS patterns, forwarding text messages I intercepted from Lauren's phone. The hardest part was Thanksgiving. My parents hosted, and both Lauren and Kevin were there. We sat around the table, eating turkey and stuffing, while my mom talked about how grateful she was to have such a wonderful family. Lauren held my hand under the table. Kevin made jokes and poured wine. And I sat there knowing that in a few days, federal agents were going to raid that warehouse and arrest both of them. I couldn't eat. I excused myself twice to throw up in the bathroom. Lauren asked if I was feeling okay, her eyes full of concern or maybe fake concern. I couldn't tell anymore. The raid was scheduled for Thursday, December 7th. The police had observed enough activity to get a warrant. They'd identified several key players in the operation, including the man in the Mercedes, who turned out to be a mid-level enforcer for a major organized crime family. Detective Morrison called me Wednesday night. Tomorrow night, we move. I need you to be somewhere else when it goes down. Go to a friend's house. Go to a bar, but don't be home when your wife gets arrested. But I had other plans. I'd been thinking about this for weeks. I'd developed the GPS tracking system that was about to help bring down my wife and brother. And I wanted to be the one to make sure they didn't escape. Tomorrow night, everything ends. And I'm going to be the one who closes the door on them. December 7th. The day I became the person who trapped his own family. I told Lauren I had a late meeting with a client. She barely acknowledged it. She was too focused on getting ready for her yoga class. I watched her pack her bag, watched her check her phone, watched her put on that same performance she'd perfected over months of lying. She left at 6:19 p.m. I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my laptop and drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks from the warehouse district. I needed to be close, but not visible. At 6:47 p.m., I pulled up the GPS tracking app and the police surveillance feed that Detective Morrison had given me access to. Lauren's car was in its usual spot behind the warehouse. Kevin's truck arrived at 6:52 p.m. Over the next 30 minutes, 4 more vehicles arrived, including the black Mercedes. Detective Morrison texted me, "We're in position. SWAT team ready to breach at 8 p.m. Stay where you are." I opened another program on my laptop, the remote control interface for the GPS security systems I'd installed. Every car I'd ever put a system in could be controlled from this dashboard. Doors locked or unlocked. Engine started or stopped. It was designed as an anti-theft feature, but I'd never imagined using it like this. Lauren's car was on my screen. So was Kevin's truck. He'd asked me to install a system in it last year for his logistics business. I'd done it as a favor. Now I was going to use it to make sure they couldn't run. At 7:53 p.m., my phone rang. Detective Morrison. "David, we're about to move in. There's been a development. We've spotted 2 more vehicles approaching the warehouse, high-priority targets from our organized crime unit. We're going to hit them all at once. It's going to get chaotic. Stay where you are and stay safe." "Understood," I said. At exactly 8 p.m., I watched the surveillance feed explode into action. SWAT vehicles poured into the warehouse district from 3 different directions. Officers in tactical gear swarmed the building. I could hear the faint sound of sirens, even from where I was sitting. And then I saw it on the GPS. Lauren's car started moving. Kevin's truck started moving. They were running. The warehouse had a back exit I hadn't known about. They must have spotted the police early and made a break for it. Lauren's car was heading west at high speed. Kevin's truck was going east. They were splitting up. My hands hovered over the laptop keyboard. This was it. The moment where I had to decide if I was really going to do this. I thought about Lauren lying to me every single week. I thought about Kevin pretending to be a legitimate businessman at family dinners. I thought about the money I'd seen in that warehouse, money that came from drugs, trafficking, suffering. I clicked the remote lock button for Lauren's car. On the GPS, her car immediately slowed. I could imagine what was happening, her trying to open the doors, panicking when they wouldn't budge, realizing she was trapped. The car came to a stop about 2 blocks from the warehouse. Then I clicked the remote lock for Kevin's truck. Same thing. His truck stopped 3 blocks east of the warehouse. Both of them were sitting in their vehicles, unable to get out, with police closing in from all directions. I watched on the surveillance feed as officers surrounded Lauren's car. They smashed the window and pulled her out. She was screaming. I couldn't hear it, but I could see her mouth moving, see her fighting against the handcuffs. On another camera, Kevin was being dragged out of his truck. He looked confused, angry, desperate. They found the money. In the back of both vehicles, duffel bags full of cash. Enough to add trafficking charges to the money laundering. Enough to guarantee they'd both go to prison for a very long time. I closed my laptop and sat in that coffee shop, shaking. I'd just locked my own wife in her car so the police could arrest her. I'd just trapped my own brother. Some part of me felt like I should feel guilty, but mostly I just felt empty. My phone started ringing. My mom. I didn't answer. Then my dad. Then friends. The news was spreading fast, multiple arrests in a major money laundering bust. Names weren't being released yet, but people who knew Kevin and Lauren would put it together soon enough. I drove home to our empty house. Walked through rooms full of wedding photos and family pictures. Every image a lie. Every memory contaminated. At 11:37 p.m., Detective Morrison called. "We got them all," she said. "Your wife, your brother, and 6 other individuals, including 3 high-priority targets. We seized over $2 million in cash and financial records that are going to blow this case wide open. Because of your cooperation, we're taking down a major money laundering operation that's been running for at least 5 years. How long will they be in prison?" I asked. "Your wife and brother? If they cooperate, maybe 10 to 15 years. If they don't, could be 20 or more. The evidence is overwhelming." I hung up and walked to our bedroom. Lauren's yoga mat was still in the corner. Her side of the closet was full of clothes she'd never wear again as a free woman. On her nightstand was a photo of us from our honeymoon in Hawaii, both of us grinning. So fucking happy, so in love. I picked up the photo and threw it across the room. The glass shattered against the wall. Then I did something I hadn't done since I was a kid. I sat on the floor and cried. Not for Lauren, she'd made her choices. Not for Kevin, he'd made his. I cried for the version of myself who'd woken up a month ago thinking he had a good life. That version of David was gone. Dead. Killed by the truth. The next few days were a blur. My parents called, devastated. My mom kept asking how we didn't know, how we didn't see the signs. My dad was quiet, probably blaming himself for Kevin going down this path. Friends reached out, some supportive, others clearly judging me for turning in my own family. One guy from high school actually sent me a message calling me a rat for cooperating with police. I blocked him. Lauren tried calling from jail. I didn't answer. Kevin tried too. I deleted the voicemails without listening. A week after the arrests, I got a letter from Lauren's lawyer. She wanted to see me. Wanted to explain everything. Wanted my forgiveness. I wrote back with 2 words. Absolutely not. Her lawyer called and tried to convince me that Lauren was a victim, that Kevin had manipulated her into the operation, that she'd been scared and didn't know how to get out. I laughed. Actually laughed. The woman I'd watched confidently processing money through counting machines wasn't a victim. She was a willing participant who'd chosen crime over her marriage. The prosecutor offered both Lauren and Kevin deals if they testified against the bigger players in the organization. They both took the deals. Lauren got 12 years. Kevin got 15. I went to both sentencing hearings. Sat in the back of the courtroom and watched them stand before the judge in orange jumpsuits. Lauren cried. Kevin looked defeated. Neither of them looked at me. When it was over, I walked out of that courthouse and realized I had absolutely nothing left. My marriage was destroyed. My relationship with my brother was destroyed. My relationship with my parents was strained because they were grieving their son going to prison. I put our house on the market. Sold it within a month. I quit my job, sold my car, sold everything that connected me to the life I'd had before. And then I did something that probably seems crazy to most people. I bought a one-way ticket to Guatemala and signed up with a humanitarian organization that provides logistics support for disaster relief and aid distribution in developing countries. Why? Because I needed to use my skills for something good. Because I needed to be as far away from this nightmare as possible. Because I couldn't look at another GPS tracking system without thinking about how I'd use technology to trap my own family. 3 months later, I'm sitting in a basic apartment in Guatemala City, coordinating supply routes for medical aid to remote villages. I'm using the same skills I used to develop tracking systems, but now I'm helping people instead of catching them. Do I regret what I did? Some days, yes. The part of me that loved Lauren and Kevin wishes I'd handled it differently. But most days, no. They made their choices. I made mine. The final part of this story isn't about revenge or justice. It's about what happens after everything falls apart, and how sometimes the only way forward is to burn down your entire life and start over somewhere completely new. It's been 8 months since I left the United States. 8 months since I walked away from everything I knew and started over in Guatemala. I'm recording this final part of my story from a small village in the highlands where I've been helping set up a medical supply route for remote communities. The work is hard. The conditions are basic. I sleep in a room with a cot and a single light bulb. I eat rice and beans most days. I don't have a car. I travel by bus or on foot. It's the complete opposite of my old life with its suburban house, nice salary, and comfortable routine. And yet, I sleep better now than I have in years. When I first arrived in Guatemala, I was running from the guilt, the anger, the complete implosion of everything I thought my life was. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. replaying the moment I locked Lauren's car doors, seeing her face through the police camera as they dragged her out in handcuffs. But something started to shift after a few months. The work I was doing actually mattered. I was using my GPS and logistics expertise to coordinate medical supply deliveries to villages that had never had consistent access to healthcare. I was training local workers on inventory management systems. I was solving real problems that helped real people. One day, I was in a village called San Miguel setting up a tracking system for their ambulance service. The mayor, an older man named Carlos, asked me why I'd come to Guatemala. Most foreigners who did this kind of work were either fresh out of college or retired. I was 38, in the middle of my career, clearly running from something. I told him the whole story, sat in his small office and laid out everything: my wife's betrayal, my brother's involvement, the warehouse, the arrests, how I'd used my own technology to trap them. When I finished, I expected judgment. Instead, Carlos nodded slowly and said something that stayed with me. You did what was necessary, but you couldn't live with who you became in doing it. So you came here to remember who you wanted to be. He was right. I'd done the right thing turning in Lauren, and Kevin. I knew that logically. But emotionally, I couldn't reconcile being the person who'd sent his own family to prison. So I'd run to a place where I could be David the humanitarian, not David the traitor. About 6 months in, I got an email from Detective Morrison. The investigation I'd helped with had led to the arrest of 23 more people connected to the money laundering operation. They'd seized over $8 million and disrupted trafficking routes that had been operating for years. She thanked me for my courage and told me that without my cooperation, none of it would have been possible. I read that email 3 times. 23 people arrested. $8 million in dirty money seized. Trafficking routes disrupted. The math was simple: by turning in 2 people I loved, I'd helped stop a criminal enterprise that was causing real harm to countless victims. It didn't make the pain go away, but it gave it context. I also started getting letters from Lauren. The prison allowed her to send 1 letter per month, and she used every single one to write to me. At first, I threw them away without reading them. But after 6 months, curiosity got the better of me. I opened one. She didn't try to justify what she'd done, didn't claim to be a victim. Instead, she wrote about how she'd gotten involved with Kevin's operation 4 years ago when her consulting business was failing and she needed money. How she'd told herself it was temporary, just until she got back on her feet. How temporary became permanent, and before she knew it, she was in too deep to get out. She wrote about how she'd loved me, how she'd hated lying to me, how every Thursday when she came home from the warehouse, she'd felt sick with guilt. But she'd been too scared of losing everything: her life, her comfort, me, to come clean. The letter ended with, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that the woman who fell in love with you in high school was real. The woman who married you was real. The criminal who betrayed you was also real. Both versions of me existed, and I hate that I let the second one destroy the first. I cried reading that letter. Not because I forgave her, but because it confirmed what I'd always known: people are complicated. Lauren wasn't a cartoon villain. She was someone who made terrible choices for understandable reasons, and then compounded those choices with more terrible choices until there was no way out except prison. Kevin wrote to me too, eventually. His letter was shorter, angrier. He blamed me for not minding my own business. Said I destroyed our family because I couldn't handle the fact that he'd finally been successful at something. Said Mom and Dad would never forgive me. I didn't respond to Kevin's letter. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. My parents reached out about 4 months after I left. The conversation was hard. My mom cried, said she was torn between being proud that I'd done the right thing and devastated that both her sons' lives were ruined. My dad was quieter, but I could hear the disappointment in his voice, not in what I'd done, but in the situation overall. Do you regret it? My dad finally asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said. I regret that it had to happen. I regret that Lauren and Kevin made the choices they made. But I don't regret stopping them. We talk once a month now. It's not the relationship we used to have, but it's something. My mom tells me she's visited Kevin twice in prison. He's taking college courses, trying to use the time productively. I don't ask for details. That's his journey, not mine. Here's what I've learned in these 8 months. You can do the right thing and still lose everything. You can make the moral choice and still feel like shit about it. Justice and peace aren't the same thing. Justice is what happened when Lauren and Kevin went to prison. Peace is what I'm trying to build here in Guatemala, one supply route at a time. Last week, I helped deliver medical supplies to a village that hadn't had access to antibiotics in 2 years. A little girl with a severe infection got treatment that probably saved her life. Her mother hugged me and cried and thanked me in Spanish that I barely understood but felt in my bones. That moment mattered more to me than anything in my old life. The big house, the nice salary, the perfect marriage that was built on lies, none of it meant anything real. But that little girl getting medicine? That was real. That mattered. I don't know if I'll ever go back to the United States. Part of me wants to stay here indefinitely, keep doing this work, keep being this version of myself. Another part knows I'm still running, that eventually I'll have to face everything I left behind. For now, I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay with waking up in a basic room in a foreign country and spending my days coordinating logistics for people who actually need help. I'm okay with being David the humanitarian instead of David the software engineer with the perfect life. To anyone listening to this who's facing a similar situation where you've discovered that someone you love is doing something wrong, I can't tell you what to do. Every situation is different. Every person has to make their own choice about what they can live with. But I can tell you this: secrets have weight. Lies have weight. The longer you carry them, the heavier they get. And eventually, you have to decide if you're going to keep carrying that weight or put it down, even if putting it down means everything falls apart. I put it down. Everything fell apart. And somehow, on the other side of that destruction, I found something that feels more real than anything I had before. Lauren has 10 more years in prison. Kevin has 13. And I have the rest of my life to fight. Figure out who I am now that I'm not defined by my relationship to them. So here I am, in a village in Guatemala, using GPS technology to help deliver medicine instead of catching criminals. Building something good out of the wreckage of everything I lost. Maybe that's not redemption. Maybe it's just survival. But for now, it's enough. This is David Reeves, signing off. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who's struggling with impossible choices. You're stronger than you think you are. And sometimes, the only way out is through.